So welcome to this webinar. Good morning, good afternoon. We are waiting for one more minute before starting the webinar. Okay, so I think we shall start and maybe other participants will join later. So I am Fanny Dastug, I am the Director General of CICA, the Confederation representing the contractors at the global level. So at CICA, we have lobbied for and introduced at the G20 level since 2011 the concept of well-prepared projects. So we aim at promoting and advertising for any initiatives which support the good preparation of the infrastructure projects. Thus, we are very pleased to partner with FAST-Infra for this webinar and to be updated on the latest developments of this certification. So we are pleased to have with us today Bob Einstein, Vice President, Global ESG Implementation Lead at ICOM, who will speak about enhancing sustainability performance in infrastructure projects. We have also François Berger, FAST-Infra Group Executive Director, and Louise Downing, CEO at Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation, who will present the FAST-Infra label. And also Edith Guedala, Head of Sustainability at Acciona. We thought it would be very relevant to have a direct experience on the contractor side to understand the processes and how the label can benefit the projects with the contractor's perspective. So after the presentations, you will have the opportunity to raise your hand and ask questions, and you can also type your questions in the chat. But before we start with the presentations, we will also have some additional opening remarks by our CICA President, Philippe Dessois, who is also General Manager at B6.
Hello, so thank you for attending this seminar and welcome to everyone. I mean, we understood as a contractor, of course, point of view that certification or labeling, let's say, of various projects is quite important, especially for some major contractor and Western contractor. I mean, we want to differentiate, let's say, the good project, the one which are well prepared. I mean, that's a topic we have since a long time within CICA as a working group, from the other projects which are usually, let's say, not going to an end and are not really sustainable on the long term. So this topic, like Fanny mentioned, is a long-term discussion we had within CICA, and we had some discussion a few months ago at the OECD level as well for certification, and we would be pleased to hear today about a FAST-Infra initiative, which is, let's say, on the same topic. So thank you for attending. Thank you for the one who are going to expose to and to talk about the FAST-Infra project. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippe. So we will start with the first presentation. So it will be Bob's presentation, and maybe before starting your presentation, you can introduce yourself in a few sentences, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, so you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. So as you've already heard, I'm Bob Einstein from AECOM. So I've been involved in sustainable infrastructure since, give or take, 2007, and kind of informally a long time before that. And at AECOM, my job is to tell a whole bunch of people that know exactly what they're doing and are very, very good at what they do, that they need to do it slightly differently. So it's a bit of a challenge, and that's why I've titled this. It's particularly, I think, a bit of a challenge in our construction management segment. That's why I've titled this, Why Should You Get on Board? So let's jump right in. Okay. Every one of you, every one of us, all our businesses, our personal lives, we have a budget, right? We have so much money's coming in. We have so much money going out. If we spend more than we make, if we spend more than our revenue streams, we're all in a lot of trouble. So what I want to do is extend that a little bit initially to the globe that we live on. And I want to talk a little bit about why. What's the big picture? Why are we taking on these labeling efforts and sustainability efforts? Okay, I'm going to explain this. It's got a lot of stuff on it. Do not let it throw you. This is relatively simple. Across the, let me get my little highlighter out so I can point. Across the bottom axis here, the x-axis, this is the state of our living, right? So at 0, 0, you're kind of like a hunter-gatherer running around the woods, hitting animals in the head and eating them for dinner. Up here at 1, you're in New York City, you're in Paris, you're in any major city. In between are various states of development, and this is a UN index that's unitless. It has no measurement units. And it's about, do you have enough to eat? It's about, do you have food? Do you have recreation? Are you educated? Do you have healthcare? It's quality of life, essentially. So if you put that aside for a second and you look at the y-axis, or what's on the right here, this is the cost of having that lifestyle. And it's measured by a group called the Global Footprint Network. And periodically, they measure these commodities. It's a wonderful data set. If anybody's data geeks like I am, I encourage you to go look at it. They measure this in periodic basis, and it's the cost of consumption and the cost of production of everything we need to live our lives. And that is measured, it's normalized into a unit of global hectares per person. Essentially, the area of usable land on Earth that each of us uses up. So this line across the middle, and this is the last piece of explanation, is how much the world has. Basically, we have one Earth. Depending on population at any given time, right now, that's about 1.7, 1.8 global hectares per person. So if we use more than that, we're overdrawing our bank account. If we use less than that, we're reasonably sustainable. And this last piece of sustainability quadrant could be 0.7, 0.8. What's a good quality of life? And what's the level at which we don't outstrip our resources? Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through 4 data series really quick, and then I'm going to get off this topic because it's somewhat depressing. All right. So we will go to this is 2006 data set. So pay no attention to the size of the dots and the colors. Those are continents and populations of relative countries. But what I'd like you to do in your mind is draw a best fit curve through that. Just figure if you drew a curve through the middle of all those dots, where would it be? So pretty clearly, it would be either we're not living a really great quality of life, or we're overdrawing our bank account. Okay. Now I'm going to run through 3 more series real quick. So this is 2016, it's 18 years ago. Not a whole lot of emphasis on sustainability. Now 2012, this is only, 12 years ago. Is that right? Yes, that's correct. My math sometimes slips on me. Again, draw the best fit curve. You see a wide scatter in this data. The best are somewhat close to the sustainability quadrant, but not really. Okay, we're going to jump forward again to 2017, draw that curve again. Really not a pretty picture. So one more time to 2018. Now you start to see a little bit of clustering. People are kind of getting a little bit better. But the message on these slides is that we are rapidly outstripping our ability to live on this little blue marble. And there's not another blue marble. So I want to really just make that clear as we dive into, why does this matter? Right? Because these are the challenges we face. These are real. These aren't going away. This is what we're doing as of today and the past. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the future. How does this impact infrastructure, right? The changes are here. We see it every day in the news: sea level, storms, fires, droughts, whatever. Our West is on fire. Last year, we had fires in Canada. I live in Northeast United States. We had smoke in our cities from 1,000 miles away. So this is real. It's happening right now. Second thing is what we build. Us. I'm in the AEC community, right? You guys do the physical building. What we are building will last a long time. Every time we don't do it with these things in mind, we create another problem for the world. Okay? So how are we addressing things like an environment that we can't predict? As an engineer, I'm a civil environmental engineer. As an engineer, we have tables, we have charts, the back of the book. Back in the old days, we looked stuff up, and they're all based on historical trends. today, those historical trends are out the window in many cases, right? We don't know what's going to happen when we build a suspension bridge, for example. What will the climate be like? Where will sea level be? What will the wind loads be like by 2080? We hope that bridge is still up by 2080, but we honestly don't know some of this. And then as a result, there's evolving funding and underwriting requirements. The people that fund our projects, the people that insure our projects are looking at that risk, and their actuarial tables are changing very fast. So then, lest I dwell on the negative only, what opportunities are out there, right? When we start to think differently about our projects, we start to put different things together instead of having that linear approach that engineering's typically taken. What can we figure out? What new ways can we think of to benefit communities, multi-benefit projects? All right. And then, of course, there's a direct impact. So there's a whole lot to think through here. Okay. So I know there's some fraction of you on this call that are like, yeah, so I'll be dead then. I could fit in that category if I chose to, right? I mean, the impacts are here, but they're not going to get really draconian until long after I'm gone. So let me just say, if you don't care about the altruistic, though, what are we doing for our kids? How about the money? Okay, so now I'm going to talk about why this matters to your businesses. Let's take a look at where we are right now as an industry. There were early adopters, and you're going to see this in kind of a different version on the next slide. Today, we're starting to get some regulatory signals from the market, right? We're here. In the UK, to bid on government work, you must have a net zero carbon program. You need a nature positive program. That's table stakes now, right? It's not even an option. Where we're moving as you move to the right here, this is what I'm going to talk about for some of this call, okay? We are moving in a direction. This is underway right now, and it's not easy and it's not fast. Okay, so where are our clients? And they're your clients too, because they come to us first, right? We design stuff and then you guys go build it. This is a continuum. Well, I'm going to start on the right here. The early adopters, they've been out there for a long time. You see them in the Googles of the world, the Amazons, some of the, Unilever jumped into this in the product space. I'm all in, right? They see the value. They see where changing their business models has resulted in increased value, all right? If you graph this slide as a bell curve, all right, the vast majority, that 2 sigma are right here. They're coming along. They're starting to look at sustainability and saying, I got to do this. I don't know how to do this. I need some help. But that's where the majority of your clients are. And then, of course, out here on the left, there's the rejectors, the ones that say climate change is a communist hoax and it's never going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. So that's why I use a dinosaur for them, because I think those guys are going to perish. Okay. Now I want to show you as an example where we are, AECOM. And I think this is a really good graphic to get home to the constructing companies, why you need to get on board. So this is our carbon footprint and our trajectory to decarb. We have a thing called SBTI, Science-Based Targets Initiative, approved targets. Excuse me. That's kind of the gold standard, and that's where a lot of us are going. This is where our emissions come from today. You'll see this big green slice up top. That's you guys. That's our supply chain. We have about 90% in our supply chain. So for us to meet our targets, we have, you'll see it here, a scope 3 target. By 2030, we'll reduce our absolute carbon emissions by 50%. By 2040, 90%. How do we do that? That's a huge lift for a company the size of AECOM. And we're not alone, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The way we do that is we work with you guys. We have to decarb our supply chain, or we will fail at what we're out to do. And we do not like to fail. Neither do our investors, by the way. Okay, so what's it got to do with you? You're our scope 3. You're our 90%. So when we started to calculate all this, and this took a while, right, to figure out all these things, we started to calculate. We went out to our top suppliers, and about 1,000 of them, and we gave them an RFI that said, where are you on your carbon and sustainability journey? And I think I could summarize the early answers as, what? Excuse me, my what journey? And then we had to go back and say, how are we going to do this? So we started to build a program, and it is absolutely a work in progress. If I told you we had all the answers now, I'd be lying to you. The goal of this program is not to replace like all our suppliers don't know how to do carbon, so we're going to get new ones. That's just not the case. The suppliers we have for a reason. They're very good. They do good work for us. So what we figured out is we have to help. We have to begin to help you guys build the capacity, and you have to start now. So it's collaborative, it's collective. We have to do better at this, right? But I think this last bullet's the key for the why. At some point in the very near future, you're going to be required to work for us to have a carbon reduction plan. And it's going to have to be verified. It's going to be SBTI or something similar. So to meet our commitments, we need you guys to join in. Okay. And I said it before, it's not just AECOM. The whole industry is moving. Look, I work with all our competitors. I meet them at meetings. We have discussions on this, and we're very careful not to collude, but we are collaborating a little bit. We're trying to raise the level of literacy around this because it's all new. And nobody really knows how to crack the code. The materials industry is coming a long way. Contractors are beginning to get on board. So we look at this and your investors, if you're publicly traded, your investors, the asset owners, the agencies we serve, they have carbon goals. Go look at their websites. They don't know how to bring them down through their organizations very well yet, but we're starting to see them in RFPs. It's early days, but this stuff is growing fast. And we're out educating them because we know to meet our goals, we have to help our clients know what to ask for. Right? Because if they don't ask us the right questions, we can't answer or we'll lose. It's the same with constructors. Our construction arm, our CM arm, when I started talking about this, they looked at me like I had 3 heads. Excuse me. And they said, hey, our margins are tight. Our customers ask for this. We give them this. Right? And that's fine. We have to help them ask better. So we're looking for our top 80% of contractors by emissions to start working toward SBTI targets. My advice to you is start with scope 1, start with scope 2. These are easy to measure. And if you have questions about that, let me know. I got a slide I can throw out there for you. Move to scope 3. That's where the hard part is. That's the stuff you don't control. Look at our competitors' websites. Go do some web research on them. We're all moving in the same direction. Okay, so key takeaways, because I want to wrap this up and leave time for the rest of us. Global climate change is real. It's here. Do not let anybody tell you that is not real. We have empirical evidence, long-term trends. The climate is getting weird, and it's going to keep getting weirder. The built environment ecosystem, we have to respond. We're about 40% of the global emissions. And if this world is to maintain anything close to a 1.5 degrees C as agreed in Paris, we have to move. We have to move now. There's plenty of reasons to do it because it's the right thing, because we have kids, we have grandkids, but if not, your livelihoods are on the line. Long-term survival, you have to act now. It's going to take a while. Publicly available tools, tons of that stuff. That's one of the things we're providing to our supply chains. There's ways to get on board with this, to start doing proxy measurements. It doesn't have to be cripplingly expensive, but you do have to make the efforts. Lean on us. Lean on your large AECs for help and guidance. The people that are now going to require this. Say, okay, great, help me. The U.S. federal government, I know when we had a conversation with the White House about this, and they were going to set targets, and we said, you have to help the small and medium businesses because they don't have the resources to do it. So I'll leave you with this. It's not a nice to have. It's both a business and a societal imperative. We have no choice. We have to move in this direction if we want to leave any kind of world for our kids. All right, and that's it for me. Thanks for listening. You can reach out to me if you have questions on this, and I will stop sharing and pass it along.
Thank you, Bob, for sharing ICOM's experience, and thank you for the quite fairly positive and proactive approach. So maybe now we will see with François and Louise how can a FAST-Infra Label help the contractors in this sustainability journey?
Thank you, Fanny, and I'll leave it to Louis to display the corresponding PowerPoint. So First of all, thanks to CICA for inviting us and giving us this opportunity to explain what FAST-Infra is about, where it stands, and what are the next steps and immediate perspectives. Thanks as well to Bob for setting the scene on very vividly and comprehensively. And let me come to what was the main topic of today's, the finance to accelerate sustainable transition in infrastructure. So FAST Infra, as we call it, is, as its name implies, it's about, implementing faster the transition to a sustainable development in infrastructure, bearing in mind that infrastructure is responsible for close to 80% of all sort of greenhouse gas emissions, so a very significant factor, a driver in climate change and climate adaptation. So the whole initiative was launched now almost 5 years ago under the auspices of the One Planet Summit held in Paris. And it initially convened a cluster of academic and multilateral development institutions together with a few representatives of development banks and governments. The French government was involved, among other players from the public sector. The goal is, as I said, to mostly accelerate, facilitate, and scale up private financing of infrastructure. So you might see it as an initiative that mostly targets financial players. That would not be the case or reflect the reality. As shown here in this slide, we have now come to the point where we are supported, and we have enlisted the support of over 80 different organizations. Accordingly, there's a number of banks or investors represented, as could be expected. There are governments or representatives of public organization or multilateral structures, but there are as well players from the industry, contractors, developers, and operators, as well as representatives from the civil society, NGOs, and others. And it should be like this because, again, in order to scale up investment in infrastructure, we need to also rely and enroll the industry players who have a critical role in prescribing, selecting, implementing those sustainable infrastructure projects. So the active participation and support of contractors, engineers, operators are absolutely key. And I had the pleasure not long ago, together with a representative of GIB, to expose as well FAST-Infra in front of representatives of the engineering profession, Syntec, and a few others. So definitely what we see as a significant initiative, one that could also be perceived as a sort of a institutional top-down initiative. This is not the case, or no longer the case, and we rather tend to see it as a market-led, industry-led, as I said, initiative, one that aims to provide more consistency and coherence among the various different standards to facilitate the financing, and ideally to provide some kind of greenium, sort of better financing terms to those players that go for a sustainable infrastructure project. So in terms of participants, I won't dwell on the sort of a detailed list. You have the main names here. I'd just like to again insist and highlight on the broad-based, inclusive, market-led approach that we have taken. We believe that it's a critical dimension to the eventual success of the initiative and taking up of FAST Infra by the market players. So next slide, please. The FAST-Infra initiative in itself comprises three main dimensions. The first one, and I'll leave in a minute Louis to further elaborate on this, is the FAST-Infra Label, a label identifying those projects that effectively meet and comply with the criteria that we come up with to effectively vouch for the sustainability of the project and provide a consistent, coherent, globally applicable system, a sort of meta standard, if you want, one that, of course, incorporates and takes stock of existing standards, but goes beyond and ideally aims to be a sort of a universal standard to refer to in the future, avoiding greenwashing and contributing by the same way to establishing sustainable infrastructure as a full-fledged asset class. So more on this in a moment with Louis, and I'll focus on the two other dimensions. Because FAST-Infra, as we see it, is a comprehensive toolbox, one that has to go beyond labeling or certifying the sustainability dimension of projects and offer additional or more appropriate ways of effectively financing, streamlining, facilitating the financing of those projects that will have been deemed sustainable through a collaborative digital platform, and I'll get back to this, and to another batch of innovative finance tool that we are currently working on and brainstorming before we come to the market with a proposal. So first, the FAST-Infra digital collaborative platform. And I have to say this is still a work in progress, under development, whereas the label, as you'll see, is already operational and being implemented. We're still working on this platform, which we see as the market infrastructure for the infrastructure market. In other words, a collaborative platform where all concerned players, and one could think of at least 10 or 15 different categories of professional players, could effectively meet, connect, share information, and transmit information in a sort of formatted and pre-dimensioned way, so as to shorten, streamline, and facilitate a process which is still very much artisanal right now. I mean, negotiating, structuring, transacting infrastructure projects has basically not fundamentally evolved over the last 50 or 60 years. Probably the last big change was the introduction of the Excel spreadsheet 40 years ago. And it stands to benefit from implementing the latest digital technology, maybe some AI tools as well, to again facilitate, pool, and improve the efficiency of those processes. So that is the ambition of this platform, integrating other existing tools. We aim to build eventually a global community of practice, convening the different users. And this is to be developed through a commercial subsidiary of FAST-Infra, a software as a service company serving the sustainable infrastructure market and deriving revenues from that business to make it sustainable in the financial sense of the term. So all of this is under development, and hopefully by next year, we hope to come up to the market with a better version. Now, a word about the latest dimension. I won't dwell too much on the platform proper. I've already mentioned the main defining features that are illustrated here. Let me move to the last dimension, the FAST-Infra Beyond, as we call it. And here, it's about identifying the gaps in the current offer or supply of financing tools, and what could be the best ways that we could put forward to plug those gaps. So we have come up with a sort of a first a tentative list of potential tools. I'll mention three of them. The first one is what we call the Global Renewable Energy Guarantees. And that's basically to address the long-standing and frustrating issues of renewable energy deals, IPPs or the like, failing to get to financial close because of issues about the creditworthiness or the capacity to pay regularly over a long period of time of the off-taker, the beneficiary of the power purchasing agreement. And this is, of course, an issue that you would find mostly in developing countries, and I should have specified this earlier on, emerging and developing countries are to be, in our view, the main beneficiaries of this FAST-Infra initiative. In any case, that's a critical objective for us, for the promoters of the initiative. So this guarantee could effectively take over for a certain period of time whenever there's an incident of payment, and in the process help make this type of deals, when they're economically relevant, make them financially bankable and investable. The second dimension is what we call open source managed co-lending portfolio program. And those of you familiar with the World Bank and IFC programs would probably have perceived that the reference to the sort of a similarly named program launched by the World Bank with a number of fellow MDBs. The idea is to widen and generalize this approach, whereby a project is sort of structured on sound basis, supported or benefiting from the participation of multilateral development banks, but offering possibilities for investors, bankers in particular, debt financiers, to effectively come on board, jump in and provide additional layer of private financing, benefiting from the same sort of very solid or sound structuring, a sort of B loan type approach, generalized so as to increase its impacts on the sustainable infrastructure market. And finally, we are also working on what we call a sustainable financing facility, whereby banks, philanthropics, concessional capital providers would lend to national development banks, sort of locally based players and development banks, for on-lending to sustainable infrastructure project. So the focus is always the same: make it shorter, easier, and cheaper to effectively channel vast amounts of money to projects that would have been deemed sustainable, presumably through the label that we come up with, and that Louis will now elaborate upon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Francois, and thank you Fanny and Philip for inviting us to come and give an update. We really appreciate it, and Bob for the fantastic framing that you just made. I'm Louis Downing. I head up the Global Infrastructure Basel Foundation. We run the secretariat for the FAST-Infra Label together with Bloomberg, who runs the data repository. So we're going to dig into the FAST-Infra Label to give you an overview of what it is and how you can use it to practically boost the recognized sustainability of infrastructure projects and some of the benefits that come out of getting projects labeled. We've already covered a bit of the framing. To take another view of it, we're missing $15 trillion in infrastructure investment between now and 2040. So we urgently need more infrastructure built to meet the Sustainable Development Goals and create global prosperity in the face of climate change and several other huge changes that we're expecting within our lifetimes. It's really important that that infrastructure gets built well and that it's decoupled from greenhouse gas emissions, from degradation of the biosphere and so forth. There's huge sums of capital that are currently hindered by high transaction costs, poor access to data on infrastructure investments, and it's essentially throttling the juice right when we need to accelerate. Project preparation is also a really key issue, where in many geographies, upwards of 80% of well-prepared projects never get built, according to World Bank data. So it's a huge waste and a missed opportunity. There are also capacity gaps to talk about, especially driven by brain drain from subnational government is a key area. And that results in some subpar master planning, options assessment, feasibility studies that basically makes the infrastructure we need not suitable for the finance that will enable it. So this picture results in a pretty risky landscape for investment into sustainable and resilient infrastructure, which is an enormous market that needs to be unlocked. So on the right-hand side of the slide, how are we unlocking it? So as Francois said, leading players across the whole infrastructure value chain, including the likes of Macquarie, HSBC, AECOM, WSP, Acciona, Swiss Re, and about 80 organizations representing more than $6 trillion of assets under management, got together to create the FAST-Infra Label to unlock finance for the projects that the world needs, basically. So the label brings together more than 55 existing standards and frameworks to create a clear, comprehensive label at the asset level that's designed to have data seamlessly roll up the capital stack from the asset to the fund, the institutional investor. And the whole thing is embedded in Bloomberg data infrastructure. Obviously, the terminals of which already sit on the desks of infrastructure financiers globally. So what are the benefits to engineers and contractors? As a globally recognized label, it provides a clear and credible sign of the sustainability of a project. This is basically saying this is a project that the world needs for a sustainable future. It also boosts company level reputation, supports client acquisition as it's aligned with a host of frameworks to which national governments have already committed to, and obviously companies like AECOM as Bob laid out, who are passing their requirements on to contractors as well. So we've already talked about the investment piece, which is important both from a debt and an equity perspective. And whilst removing some of the headaches from regulatory reporting, the label also helps to preempt upcoming ESG requirements of financiers. Labeled projects also enjoy better visibility to a community, a huge community of some of the largest infrastructure investors globally. On the flip side of that, the label also helps to avoid reputational risks in a context where scrutiny of infrastructure spending practices increase year on year. And these are a couple of examples. So let's unpack the label a little bit. The FAST-Infra Label defines sustainable infrastructure against 4 dimensions: environment, adaptation and resilience, social and governance. So simply put, the FAST labeled infrastructure avoids lock-in to high carbon pathways, withstands the impacts of climate change, improves rather than degrades biodiversity in the biosphere, whilst being equitable, inclusive, safe, and well-governed. Let's break that down a little more. So how do you get the label? After applying for the label, you complete an online self-assessment against the criteria I just showed. It's a flexible assessment that asks projects to demonstrate, first, that they're doing no significant harm across a set of baseline criteria, and that they're making a positive contribution to at least one sustainability objective, like climate change, biodiversity, adaptation, health, etc. The project's then awarded a self-assessed label and has the option to get a third party to assess the project for a verified label. And the up to the self-assessment stage is totally free of charge, and then to pay for the work of a verifier, we expect to be between 10 to 25,000 USD. So backing that whole process up, the data repository is the other element that I mentioned, is currently being designed and built by Bloomberg, set to be released in November this year, using state-of-the-art data security infrastructure. And this is where the data is uploaded by applicants through a simple, intuitive process. The data repository is actually a critical part of the label strategy because it provides transparency. And that's not just to facilitate reporting and access to data, but also to underpin the new sustainable infrastructure asset class in a way that speaks to both regulators and institutional investors, hopefully unlocking that $15 trillion of capital that I mentioned. So where are we at the moment? We're enjoying some really fantastic momentum, even in the pre-launch phase. As I said, the data upload portal's launching in November. So we've got 23 projects registered across all continents except the USA. We're working on that with a total capex of about $6.3 billion across a range of sectors. We've got some really great feedback from these pioneering projects, both at the project level and the financiers standing behind them, which includes Macquarie Asset Management, HSBC, Meridian, the EBRD, and others. And the projects have also enjoyed increased recognition, visibility across the FAST-Infra community, and the international fora where we as the Secretariat actively promote and spotlight those successful projects with a view to seeing that they more swiftly can reach financial close if that's the stage that they're up to. So I hope that that's given you a glimpse into where we're at, how the FAST-Infra Label works, the benefits it provides to boosting sustainability in projects and boosting sustainable projects and the companies that create them. So we really welcome you to get involved. This is an extremely important initiative that the world needs right now. So three ways to get involved. Number one, join the movement. This fantastic community that is standing behind the label, and have a say in how the label develops further as well. Secondly, sign up for some training. So we're launching a new professional credentialing program next month. With the early bird registrations are still open, and this training enables you to officially consult on the FAST-Infra Label and have your company recognised as being FAST-Infra capable. And then thirdly, adopt the label. Try it out on a project. Start with a no cost, no commitment self-assessment. Check it out and see what kind of benefits it can provide or what kind of learnings it can also provide to the staff working on projects. So we look forward to hearing any questions that you have and working with you to accelerate development of sustainable infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, François. Thank you, Louis. By the way, do you agree if we share your slides afterwards so people can access this information and have
Sure.
the QR codes, etc. Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So we will now have a third presentation. We are very happy to have Edith with us today. So she is the head of sustainability at Acciona. And we are very pleased to hear about her experience and how contractors can directly and indirectly benefit from the FAST-Infra certification.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Can you hear me well? Because I have some problems with the mic. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's a bit low, but we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I would try, and now I hope it's better. Sorry for that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me to participate in this session. I'm really honored to be here representing from one side as a member of the steering committee of FAST-Infra, but from other side I'm also a contractor, and I'm a representative of Acciona, which is inside its business. It's a construction company in Spain. My name is Edith Guedella, and I work as the head of sustainability of the construction business of Acciona. I have been working in the construction sector for nearly 20 years, mainly developing sustainable and innovative solutions at construction sites, and dealing with mainly with resources circularity life cycle assessment approach, but also now dealing with how to decarbonize the different sites that we have, and to implement positive environmental and social impact in the projects. I would like to, and today's presentation is mainly based in what is a regenerative approach of the infrastructure linked to all what all the other speakers have been telling, and also the FAST-Infra Label implementation process in one of our examples, in one of our projects that we are now evaluating in Brazil. And here you can have my contact in any case you need anything from my side. As Louis mentioned, and there is a huge investment gap in infrastructure. According to Oxford Economics, the global infrastructure gap is projected to be around 15 trillion. That is the difference between the world needs to invest. That is 94 trillion in infrastructure by 2040 to support economic growth, population increases, and urbanization. But there is likely to be an investment of around 79 trillion, and this is the 15 trillion gap that Louis mentioned before. And also developing regions, particularly Asia and Africa, face the largest gaps, but also in developed countries there is a gap in modernization, maintenance, and technological upgrades. And this gap need for sustainable infrastructure investment, as has been said. So this is why this FAST-Infra group and FAST-Infra Label is so important, has a so important role. Regarding the construction sector, we have a lack in productivity. So regarding the construction industry has a really slow in productivity compared with the whole economy. And what we need is increased productivity of our sector in a sustainable way to make the investment really more efficient, but also to cover this deficit of the gap investment more quickly, and to do it with fewer public resources, because these are the ones that mainly invest in what we operate as contractors. How can we increase the productivity of our projects, of our infrastructure assets, boosting the infrastructure total performance? That means that we could do it with giving more service with less resources. And how can we do that? And here is where it comes the regenerative approach in place, and sustainability in place. What we need is to obtain more functionality, more output, more services from the infrastructure itself. And in the case of Acciona, we have mainly focused the strategy in 3 points, which are approaching a local context and included it since the design phase, and nature integration to obtain these ecosystem services that could give this extra functionality to the infrastructure, and the circularity to keep the resources as much as possible within the cycle. But of course, there could be other ways of doing that, and this is the approach that Acciona has followed for this positive environmental and social impact that could increase the productivity of the infrastructure. And how to evaluate and track this positive impact, and how to evaluate this track of increasing in productivity. So we are moving in this regenerative approach from the, let's say, from the conventional or the green aspects that Bob mentioned at the beginning. So this in the early stages of at least being green, but now we need to go further. We need to move from the sustainable path to this positive environmental and social impact that what is called the regenerative. So we move from sustainable to restorative to regenerative. And in this journey, in the infrastructure side, we need schemes and within tools that could help us in defining what could be this positive and that could measure and help measuring this positive impact. And this is where FAST-Infra Label has a really huge role on, and with all the perspective, as Louis mentioned, the 4 dimensions of the label in which you can adopt and measure a positive contribution in each of them, and you need for the label at least one, and with the 14 basic indicators. So this can really help in this journey to this regenerative approach for the infrastructure, and that could help us in increasing the productivity and in unlocking this infrastructure gap. And the implementation under the contractor's perspective and under what we are now doing in one of our projects, for example. What are the main benefits regarding the construction side? As in this build, we know that there are some construction companies like Acciona, which we have clear objectives in terms of sustainability. We are really ambitious in terms of ESG objectives. But this tool can help you in achieving these objectives and in monitor these objectives. But in case you don't have established these objectives, that they are completely needed, and they are needed for the investment, and they are needed for the development, and to really achieve this what mentioned in his presentation, to at least achieve this less environmental impact and biocapacity. This is a way to track and at least to introduce these first steps of the sustainability objectives. And the positive point is that you will consider the whole life cycle approach within the project. Even in our case, we are parts of the life cycle and we are we could be part of the early stages or just in the construction phase, but this could help us to produce a sustainable infrastructure in the whole life cycle. This can also help in this client and owner of the asset goals and objectives. It could help in achieve and aligned with the objectives of these final clients. As I mentioned in the presentation, now we are starting to have these requirements specifically from the clients or the owners of the final infrastructure assets, and FAST-Infra is a clear scheme that could help you in ensuring this alignment. It also facilitates the negotiation and procurement of sustainable financing. Is a way of saying of proving that this asset is sustainable, and that could help you in unblocking some of the ESG finance for the infrastructure itself, not only for the owners of the clients, but also for in our phase, in the construction phase. And for sure, all these can give an added value of the infrastructure itself. As I mentioned before, for me, an important role of FAST-Infra, which I have not seen in other schemes, is that the possibility of incorporating this additionality of positive impact and demonstrate this additionality for the multifunctionality of the infrastructure that we are aiming when we are talking about the regenerative approach. It can help and encourage commitment to a sustainable construction among all the parties involved in the process, and this, as it evaluates the whole life cycle, and can engage all the stakeholders involved in the infrastructure development. And so from the contractor's perspective, this label showcases the commitment to sustainability of all elements and parties involved in the infrastructure development. I would like to say that we have been, but we are still ongoing on labeling one of our projects, which is Line 6 Metro Line in Sao Paulo in Brazil. Is one of our largest projects in South America, and in this case we are building the infrastructure, but this infrastructure will be also operated by the concession business of Acciona as part of the SPV of this concession. And we are now dealing with the process, with the label, gathering all the information that we plan to finish this week, all the information in every of the aspects of the label, and once it's uploaded, it will be reviewed, and we will see if we are self-assessed for a later stage, as we mentioned before, continuing with a verification process. These are some of the questionnaires that we are, some examples as the platform is being developed. We are now working with directly with the questionnaires for the self-assessed, in which you can select the different indicators, and then you upload the information to verify what you are saying in the different fields. And here are some screenshots of some of the indicators that we are working with in this project. And that is all from my side, and I'm here to, if you need any question or any support, have my contact, and I'm really keen to participate in this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you, Edith, and to all the speakers. So now we can go for the Q&A. So do you have any questions? Feel free to raise your hands. I saw a question in the chat, but I think, François, you answered about the insurance questions. Maybe we had some questions here. So I had a question for you, maybe Edith, and also François and Louis. At what stage, because the label is for the project, right? But the company has to answer the questionnaires, and how is the company involved, and at which stage? Is it really early before the development of the project, or we see with the Line 6 of the metro that it can be later on? So maybe could you explain a bit more? And also what happened if the project fails to get the certification?
Louis?
Thanks, Fanny. Yeah, I can speak to both of those points. So the label applies at any stage in the infrastructure project, essentially. So the earlier you apply, the more that the label is based on commitments to what you'll do in the future. So if you haven't, started, if you haven't put the shovel in the earth yet, then what you're committing to is the way that you're going to put the shovel in the earth, if that makes sense. And if you're later in the process, then you're basically saying, what has happened, how is the project operational, and also looking at, how will the project be decommissioned, once it's reached the end of its lifetime, or not decommissioned if there's another sort of strategy. And then, in terms of if the project is unsuccessful, it's basic. The label is not set up to be a punitive instrument. It's it's also used as a capacity building tool, you know, to inform staff about sustainability and so forth. So there's no, a project is welcome to drop out of the process at any point, and it's not, you know, it's not published publicly that that's happened. And we really encourage people to, you know, get in and use the criteria, have a go at the self-assessment. There's sort of no risk associated with it.
And if I may quickly emphasize one of the points that Louis just made, indeed, you could think of an already operational project that has already been delivered and is operational and applying for the a label, if only take an example to facilitate a refinancing at better conditions, or prepare the ground for a potential sale. The idea of FAST-Infra, I said, it's a relatively comprehensive initiative aiming to facilitate financing, and that would include refinancing, in my view. Refinancing existing projects can be a way through asset recycling by developing a secondary market to effectively attract more institutional investors, more fresh money into the development of sustainable infrastructure, and in the process scale up and speed up the whole transition that we are aiming for. So definitely applicable at all stages of a project life.
Okay, thank you. I see we have another question in the chat. Have projects been verified? How do you create consistency in the third-party verification process?
I can cover that one as well. So there hasn't been a verified project yet. So all of the self-assessed projects now are could be the first one to get the verification. We are designing the verification, the whole assurance management system, according to ICIL codes of practice for standard setting and assurance and impact. So this is the umbrella organization that defines how sustainability labels like the Fair Trade label, the Marine Stewardship Council label, you know, these labels that we know and love operate. And so the verification's done by third parties. So there's currently 3 approved third parties: SGS, Socotec in France, and Bureau Veritas. And the question was, how do we ensure that different verifiers will use will assess the projects in the same way? So they have to apply an ISO standard to the way that they verify projects, and the standard that they use is ISO 17021 for anyone who's an assurance nerd like me. And in addition to that, we do calibration activities, basically. So throughout a period of time, we engage with the verification bodies to see that, given the same information, the verification bodies will come back with the same result each time. So it's a very well defined process that's been developed over years from other standards, looking at, you know, different kinds of supply chains and products and assets that are getting labeled for different reasons.
Thank you. We had a question for Bob. So you spoke about higher sustainability standards, which are vital for meeting client requests in a market with growing demands. How about cost efficiency? In which fields do you see sustainable construction methods, technologies, and materials leading to savings and improved cost competitiveness?
Wow, that seems like it should be a really easy answer, but it's not. So let me just start here. So I do a lot of discussion about this. Cost. What is cost? Right? You have to think about cost in 3 different potential buckets. Right? We can look at costs, and we do tend to look at costs in our current paradigm as CapEx cost. What does it cost to put the infrastructure on the ground? Right? This is what our clients pay us to do. Right? This is the money we're going to take in. So that's one way to look at cost. Second way to look at cost is CapEx plus OpEx. Right? Now we put it on the ground, but now what's it going to cost our client to use it for the life cycle of the project? Okay, so you could bucket those two together and say, I do something that's a little bit more expensive on a CapEx basis, but I drop OpEx by some fraction, and over the life cycle, the client gets a better value. So the third bucket, though, and I think this is the one that this is sort of our aspirational bucket, if you will, CapEx plus OpEx plus or minus externalities. Right? So our infrastructure creates impacts in the world, right? And they're outside the boundaries of our traditional projects. So I'll just give you a silly little example. If we have let's call it a smart growth component in a city, and it creates more active citizenry. So people walk around more, they do less time sitting in a car. That's demonstrably improving health incomes, or health outcomes, sorry. So health insurers have better claims experience. There's empirical evidence to this. Right now, that's very difficult to connect to an infrastructure budget, right? But this is sort of where we need to go. So to kind of wrap back to your question, Fanny, if we want to talk about how we develop cost competitiveness, I think there's a paradigm shift in how we propose solutions to our clients. Excuse me, that's a very difficult thing to do, and it's a long-term challenge. Today, it's going to be how quickly, how efficiently do the contractors integrate these sustainability aspects, not as a bolt-on, not as an add-on, but as an integral part of their project delivery, which will create efficiencies. And then, of course, the materials industry has to come a long way. And we're looking at carbon content in concrete, carbon content in steel. Where is it manufactured? How far is it transported? Those efficiencies, the contractors that can put them together in a package and integrate them throughout their delivery will have an advantage in the near future. The rest of what I talked about, that's a little bit longer term. So I know that was a really kind of circuitous answer, but I hope that helps some.
Thank you. I see we have another question. Would it be possible to learn about the 23 projects in more detail participating in the label? Is it public information what these projects are? Also, what is the ideal type of project you'd be looking to onboard in the US, Canada?
I can cover that. So the 23 projects are ones that are registered and are somewhere along their path to getting the label. So we don't release any information about them until they've succeeded in getting the label. And so on our website, there's a database which is getting populated, and I think there are 6 or 7 that have currently popped out with the label so far. So feel free to get into that and have a look at those projects. In terms of what kinds of projects we're looking for in the US and Canada, the label is sector agnostic. So basically, we're looking for projects that create a positive impact on one of the sustainability objectives that we're looking at. So energy has been a popular sector so far. Be it wind or solar or geothermal, transport as well is a very hot topic at the moment. Port infrastructure. So really, we're looking for a diversity of projects as well to meet the appetite of the investors that are part of our community. I also thought that just on the previous question to Bob, we get this question a lot, and maybe the other side of the coin is looking at the revenue piece. And over the years, the infrastructure projects that we as an organisation have worked with, we've been surprised that this the accepted wisdom that sustainability costs more, costs more in CapEx and saves OpEx. That is often true. It's really not always true, and we've been surprised that running projects through and asking them questions about how have you maximized your contribution to circular economy through using recycled materials has actually triggered design changes. For example, we had one project that comes to mind where they were going to stabilize a slope with virgin concrete, and when given this question, they actually pivoted their design to identify a demolition site, take the rubble from it, put it into gabion baskets, which saved them a huge amount of capex for this slope stabilization component. So very interesting. And another one comes to mind as well, working with metro projects in emerging economies. I'm thinking of a specific project in India where harassment of women was a big problem. And what the developer had done had put specific design elements in place, very cheap design elements like women-only carriages and other things to make to boost women's ridership of women. And the impact on revenue, which they could measure very, very clearly, was both an increase in revenue volume and also an improvement in revenue stability, because the ridership patterns of the male and the female passengers was totally different. So you've got the asset running the whole day through. The men are catching it in the morning and in the evening to commute, and the women are doing tons of tiny trips in between. So, you know, just to back up what you said, Bob, and just to say, you know, that wisdom of, you know, it's going to cost more to get sustainable is not always true. And there's tons of examples. A very exciting, you know, process to take a project through these criteria and see what it can generate in terms of, you know, design changes.
Yeah, if you don't mind me piggybacking, Fanny, for 1 second, because I have another example like that. We were working on a water project in the Western US. And I was actually teaching a class to some of the people that were involved in the project. And somebody just casually let out that they had saved $4 million by thinking about where they put their cut in their film and how they reused it, rather than, you know, we're going to cut, we're going to take it off site, and then we're going to go get fill and bring it on. It was very, and just, it wasn't even something it was just like, yeah, and we saved $4 million. And he kept talking. And I'm like, oh, back up the truck. This is important, right? This is exactly what you're talking about. The CapEx is not always greater. It's changing the business models, changing the way we think.
Thank you for the very concrete examples and very inspirational. So I think most of the participants, would like to keep being in touch with you. And if you all agree, we would share your slides with them. And if you would like to give final words, each one of you, before we close the webinar.
So I said a lot already, but yeah,
just in case you want to add something,
you know, I think
before we close. If not,
what Lewis just said, you know, everything that all these people have said, this is a mind shift, right? This isn't just something we add on. Oh, my client wants sustainability, so we're going to throw a few things on at the 11th hour. This is about changing how we think about infrastructure. What are the opportunities we can achieve? What are the things we have to do to integrate this into our business models? Because when you integrate it, that's when you realize the value for your business and for the society you serve. I'll leave it at that.
Well, on my side, just a reminder that FAST-Infra Group has been set up to effectively promote, integrate all types of concrete and inclusive solutions. So we started with the label. We thought it was really the sort of the founding stone, the necessary to further develop other tools serving the same aim, which is accelerating transactions to speed up transition. And we're very happy that thanks to the stewardship of GIB and Bloomberg, things have really taken a very positive sort of takeoff for the label. We still have a lot to do on the other dimensions, but that's a very exciting challenge for all of us involved, and one that we hope to gradually implement over the next years. So hopefully we'll get more opportunities to present and tell you about the latest additions to the toolbox in the coming years.
Thank you very much.
Look, nothing from me, Fanny, other than to say, you know, thanks so much, and preemptively thanks to everyone attending for getting in touch with us and helping to support this really important movement.
Yeah, thank you from my side, and Just regarding the last discussions, a contractor, we can find these optimization examples that are really linked to a cost-effective way in terms of sustainability, but also if we go for this multifunctionality of the infrastructure and changing the way of having these new business models regarding what we do is where we can find the opportunities of the integration of sustainability within the infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Maybe Philippe, if you want to say some final words.
Yes, I mean, we see the world is changing. I mean, that's a good news, of course. I mean, we have seen some different initiative also. I mean, like the Blue Dot network also certification, IFC also with the BRI index. So I think it's a trend, and I mean, one day or the other, I think all the major projects will have to get a kind of certification. So thank you for your efforts, and hopefully, let's say, it will get some more success in the future. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.